Question, Senator Rhiannon.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Has MLA been notified by any of your consultants about breaches of ESCAS in any of the markets that we export to?
Thank you, Senator. Senators, Happy New Year. We have consultants working around the marketplace, and let me just reiterate what their role is, because they're neither the policemen nor the auditors of supply chains under the ESCAS program. They're there at the invite of commercial supply chains to conduct both gap analysis and training to assist those supply chains in either becoming ESCAS accredited or in enabling them to continue their improvement towards the journey in terms of animal welfare. Our consultants, whenever they see whatever they observe and whatever they witness during that training, during that gap analysis, is provided in written reports back to the exporter or the supply chain that they're contracted to or that they're working for. Not all those reports find their way back to us, but I'll hand over to Dr. Peter Barnard, who's our General Manager for Livestock Exports.
Yes, just to add to Mr Henson's answer.
For purposes for Henson,
sorry.
State your name, please.
Peter Barnard, General Manager of Trade and Economic Services, Meat and Livestock Australia. Senator, just to add to Mr Henson's answer, MLA conducts a range of activities at the invitation of supply chains, and we report on all of those activities to supply chains. So they're training activities, risk analysis activities, the risk of an ESCAS breach occurring, the possibility that it will occur, technical advice. A comprehensive report goes back to the supply chain, and a copy of that report is held by our officers.
Thank you, Mr Barnard. So to Mr Barnard and Mr Henson, the question was, has MLA been notified by any of your consultants? I'll change that. Any of your consultants or the companies that they work for about breaches of ESCAS?
As the General Manager responsible, I cannot recall a single case.
Do you want to take it on notice?
No, I'm prepared to answer it. I cannot recall a single case where a definite breach of ESCAS has been observed by our consultants.
Well, I would ask if it could go unnoticed, because just listening to your language there, it sounds like it does need to be checked. I heard, Mr Henson, you said how you're not a policeman, and I did remember that in the estimates last year, it was stated that you do not see your role as policing ESCAS, so that's been reiterated. But after those estimates last year, Minister Ludwig did state quite clearly that he would expect MLA consultants to report ESCAS breaches. So given the Minister's clear expectations, will you or have you notified your consultants about the requirement to report breaches as they see them?
Yes, certainly, Senator. We continue to play a role where we're invited into these supply chains at their request, with no regulatory power, no regulatory authority, to conduct the training and the skills development that we do. As we've said, any non-compliance perceived by us, because remember, we're not the ones who can make a judgment as to whether an ESCAS non-compliance has actually occurred, an ESCAS breach can occur. That's purely the regulator's job to say whether the law has been broken. Any non-compliance we do see is reported back to the supply chain for whom we're working for. Now, that supply chain has a responsibility of reporting any breaches or any perceived breaches of ESCAS back to the regulator. And that's one of the three planks of reporting of non-compliance back to the regulator, either self-reporting the audit reports or through third-party reporting. So we do report everything we see back through to that supply chain, who in turn has an obligation and a responsibility of reporting back to the department. Now, if we witness, or if our contractors witness serious breaches, and I asked Dr Barnard to outline the judgment on which we use against that, then we would obviously ensure that DAF is directly informed.
What I will do, sorry, Senator Rhiannon, I'll give you the opportunity to ask one more because, you know, time does fly when you're having fun and it's flown. So I'll let you follow up with one more, then I'll go to Senator Back.
So I think we were going to go to Mr Barnard, but maybe if I ask my question now, just to clarify when you respond, Mr Barnard, are you, is the MLA, has the MLA been notified by your consultants? Like,
can I just, first of all, add to Mr Henson's answer? I mean, look, there's a number of considerations that we take into account when considering whether a serious breach has occurred and whether a report should be made. Part of that, I'll go through three things that we consider. It's whether the assessment, whether the breach involves subjectivity. And Senator, a lot of breaches of ESCAS, or possible breaches of ESCAS, involve a subjective assessment. So let me give you an example. Is movement of livestock carried out calmly and effectively? That's a subjective assessment. Are staff observed to be working in accordance with SOPs? That's a subjective assessment. So that's one of the factors that we take into account. A lot of these checklist items involve subjective assessments. And it is not our role to make an ultimate ruling on whether that checklist item has been met.
but do you pass it on?
Sorry, Senator Rhiannon.
Can I just...
Mr Barnett, I would ask you to make it brief if I could, please, because we only have 2 minutes left.
The second factor that we take into consideration is, are we certain that an ESCAS breach has occurred? I mean, often, mostly, almost invariably, we don't know whether ESCAS cattle are involved. We often don't even know whether it's Australian livestock involved. So that's a second aspect. And a third aspect, is this a systemic issue? Is animal cruelty involved? Is there significant pain and suffering? So, Senator, I emphasise that we are hardly... I can't think of a case that we're ever in an absolute position to rule on an ESCAS breach. And as Mr Henson said, that is not our role, that's the regulator's role.
We have 1 minute to go, Senator.